Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zimbabweans have become masters of rhetorical nonsense. And by rhetorical nonsense, I mean discussing issues that start nowhere, goes round and round in circles, end up nowhere else. At the end of the day, you've not learned anything, you've not said anything of substance, and tomorrow you start the whole debate all over again. The issue of the Constitutional Amendment Bill is very simple. ZANU-PF rigged the 2023 elections. The opposition participated, gave the process legitimacy, and ZANU-PF was going to use that legitimacy to amend the constitution to achieve whatever it liked. The whole pretense that somehow the opposition could stop the Constitutional Amendment Bill process was, of course, idiotic. Because if ZANU-PF can rig the elections, they can rig the Constitutional Amendment process. So it was a foregone conclusion. But typical of Zimbabwe, this issue is being discussed and debated, and no doubt will be discussed for many, many more months to come. That is, to me, the disappointment of Zimbabwe. Welcome to the program, Ben.
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. Thank you for joining. You know, for me, the disappointing part is the so-called intellectuals are the ones that are actually failing to grasp what exactly is going on. And I'm glad, you started by mentioning the participation of Zimbabweans in rigged elections. It's not rocket science. It's not deja vu. Everybody knows. Even the outside world has warned us. So we cannot have any excuse that ZANU-PF rigs elections, that our elections are below par, are below the set requirements, of international standards, how they conduct their elections. Our elections are a violation of our own constitution. Nobody out there doesn't know, especially when it comes to those that, profess to be called intellectuals. But instead of then leading and taking and educating the others that may not really understand this and understand the whole concept of how it is wrong and flawed and illegal, they are the ones that are encouraging those that know better. And this is why we are in this position in the first place. Our participation in rigged, flawed elections only grants legitimacy to ZANU-PF. They use what they call in Shona, Yatsika Msheche Yama. That's all they want. And then the rest, they'll figure out amongst themselves how to fine-tune the books. Period. It's not hard to understand that, And I believe they know, because it's not the first time this has happened.
Well, we've got here a panel discussion to discuss this Constitutional Amendment Bill. by various very familiar faces to many Zimbabweans. I'll just play a short snippet of that video where Chief Soswe is making his contribution. And then I'll play another snippet of Dr. Simba Mawaza commenting on it. And the whole point is to once again show this culture of rhetorical nonsense.
Was never going to win any election, even if they tried to rig. It was going to be very difficult. So they decided that they were going to make sure that Mr. Mnangagwa was elected, even though he was unelectable. He was elected by all means possible. They knew that if they were going to go to the people, he would not be elected. So they decided to remove the people from the equation, disenfranchise more than 15 million people, take away the voting rights of 15 million people, and put that right in less than 500 people who are the parliamentarians and the senators. And even with the senators and the parliamentarians, they knew that he would still not be voted. But they knew that they could bribe them, as you saw them doing, and then only then could he become electable. So this is what happened a few weeks ago, and the bill then went to Parliament, and the parliamentarians voted. And I was there when everything was unfolding. ZANU-PF did not even have the 2/3 majority that would have ensured the bill went through. Had it not been for the few members of parliament that were given cars and trinkets. Of course, most of those that ended up voting for him got $10,000 each, and we hear that they're going to get $20,000 more, which means, like I said, ZANU-PF did not have an outright majority in parliament to pass this diabolic bill. So now that's what we have in Zimbabwe. The bill has been passed in parliament, and ZANU-PF are looking forward to ensuring that Mnangagwa gets another illegal term, a term extension. Of course, the bill still has to go to Senate. The people of Zimbabwe, as I round up, the people of Zimbabwe were not against what ZANU-PF is trying to introduce. What they wanted was to be given an opportunity to say no or yes. That's the reason why we were always saying, if they want to do that, let's go to the people, let's have a referendum, and let the people of Zimbabwe speak whether they want to see these changes taking place or not. But of course, ZANU-PF, knowing very well that the people of Zimbabwe are totally against this bill, they said, we are not going to go for a referendum, and they decided to push the bill through Parliament, which they bribed, and the Parliament, of course, passed the bill. But before I step down, I just want to pay homage to the 42 members of Parliament that voted no against the bill. We salute them. They decided to stand with the people, and I want to assure them that what they did will not be in vain. This struggle has not been finished. It's just a battle that ZANU-PF won. They did not win the struggle. The struggle continues. We are going to fight. CAB3 will not see the light of day in Zimbabwe.
I'll stop it there for a minute. This is typical opposition flip-flopping. They have sold this idea that the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 could be stopped. That has been nonsense from the word go. ZANU-PF has just rigged the 2023 elections. SADC and the AU condemned that process as flawed and illegal. The election process is more stringent than a constitution amendment process. If ZANU-PF can rig a process that is supervised by outsiders, and you have given them legitimacy by participating in a process, in the electoral process, what is there to stop them rigging the constitution amendment process? Nothing. So this whole argument that the people of Zimbabwe wanted a referendum instead of just the constitution, the way ZANU-PF has tabled it, is nonsense. The constitution, the way it's written, many would agree that it demands that amendment to the constitution would require a referendum. But ZANU-PF has got ways of getting around those things, as we have seen. They've misinterpreted the constitution itself to say we don't require a referendum. And Parliament has accepted that. And the whole nation is being bulldozed into rubber stamping this whole process, confirming the ideas we have been, the view we have expressed on this platform again and again, that this process is flawed. It's so flawed, so illegal, that the only logical thing to do is not to participate. If you participate, you give the process legitimacy. They participated in the election process. They gave ZANU-PF legitimacy. What was ZANU-PF was going to do after they got the 2023 legitimacy is to be expected. So it is a pity that we have got a nation that, particularly in opposition, that keeps on repeating the same mistake over and over again. And unfortunately, we've got an electorate that is not wise enough to see what is happening. Ben.
I have to agree with you there. You know, since the birth of the MDC-CCC, all they have done was drag us from one election to the other on the promise that they would stop ZANU-PF from rigging elections and that they would win big. That is their message from the very beginning. But then, you know, what puzzles me the most is they actually know that it cannot be done. They have written books upon books. They have acknowledged. They have brought video evidence showing of ZANU-PF rigging. But that has not stopped them from participating in the next election. And they actually agreed to say, it is because of our greed that drives us to participate in the election. This is not me saying, this is them saying when it suits them. Now, you know, after the observer missions have warned to say, stop participating in these elections, implement reform. That way you have a chance. Till this day, MDC-CCC has never implemented even one reform. They have spoken about it. at the rallies, at meetings like these here where they have their few panels. But where it is supposed to be directed, they have never done it. And the worst part is, now because 42 voted against ZANU-PF, which makes and creates an illusion to say there is democracy in Zimbabwe, the majority won and the minority lost. They are now creating an image to say the 42 did us a big favor. They didn't do us no favor. They were doing ZANU-PF a favor by creating a false democracy. When SADC drew the line and called an emergency extraordinary meeting to discuss the elections of Zimbabwe, whilst they were still discussing, they were being sworn into their positions, making SADC and any other look foolish and helpless. Because by taking up positions, they're accepting the outcome of that flawed election as proper. So how then is it doing us a favor? How should we sing them praise? And I have to agree, a lot of people do not know about that. Well, sometimes it's not about knowing, it's about not wanting to know. But those are facts.
Well, I'd like to play the same video clip and hear what Dr. Simbamawaza had to say on the issue.
You have argued previously, and of course, a lot of supporters in ZANU-PF argue that this bill or the passage of this bill will help Zimbabweans to move forward. Some people have argued that Zimbabwe spends too much time in campaign mode, not enough time governing. Why is this a 7-year cycle preferable to the current 5-year system? Why did you guys decide to go this route without going to the people? Maybe people would have given it more legitimacy.
Thank you very much for your question. Let me just answer your question first. Then you will give me some few minutes to go through what my colleagues have gone through. I don't understand your question on the point that why are you saying we have not gone to the people? If we have gone to the parliament represents people. So we have gone to the people through the parliament. And for your information, Paul, the parliament is inclusive of the opposition members of parliament who even agreed with ZANU-PF and gave the first passing of the bill number 3. So the opposition are in with it. There are only few misguided opposition members who did not agree with the majority of the opposition, the likes of Chief Soswe and others. With due respect, I'm not being disrespectful to him, but I'm being truthful to him. That his opposition members have actually voted for us, voted for the ZANU-PF sponsored bill. When we talk of this bill, which I'll come to the point in a minute, when we talk of this bill, Paul, we are not talking of a ZANU-PF mechanization. We are talking of the people's wish. This was said by the people at a ZANU-PF conference. But don't forget that people, ZANU-PF is people, and the people are ZANU-PF. So at our ZANU-PF conference, which included people, there was a resolution number 1, which had asked for the extension of the time of the president in his term, not the extension of the term.
I'll just stop it there. I think the most notable thing there is that participating in the 2023 election gave ZANU-PF legitimacy. And participating in the constitution amendment process is giving that process also legitimacy. That point cannot be denied. And therefore, then to keep on participating and then try to say it wasn't legal is absolutely nonsensical. One of the other speakers on this video does point out that the participation of the people in the Constitution amendment process was flawed in the sense that there was violence. Those who had an opposing point of view were never given the chance. That is what we had warned would happen. And that was to be expected. And yet the opposition still maintained and insisted in participating. Like Ben correctly pointed out, if you participate, you have given the process legitimacy. The fact that you participated, turned out at the public hearing, and were never even given the microphone, it's neither here or there as far as ZANU-PF is concerned. The process is so flawed, so illegal, the only logical step is to withdraw. That statement can never be overstated. That has been at the heart of Zimbabwe's electoral process. We cannot deny that the process is flawed. We cannot deny that it is so flawed, your participation will not change anything, but will only give the process legitimacy. The question is, why has the opposition been insisting in participating regardless? And the answer to that is ZANU-PF has been smart enough to make sure that they do give those who participate a few gravy train seats and entice them to keep participating no matter how flawed the process gets. So the problem lies here with the electorate themselves. They've not been smart enough to realize that the opposition is ZANU-PF Team B in all but name, playing for Team A to win and for Team A to have legitimacy and be given their reward of a few gravy train seats, and they are happy. That is the reality. And as long as we have got an electorate that is slow to realize that reality, we will continue to have these rhetorical, nonsensical debates where the same argument is being regurgitated and is even being misrepresented as progress, where the 42 who participated in 2023 elections betrayed the people by participating and knowing that they were betraying the people. And now they come to Parliament and make a big song and dance about rejecting this constitutional amendment bill number 3, knowing fully well that they were not going to make any difference. And they're being heralded as heroes. That is the problem with Zimbabwe. And that is what we've got to guard against. Ben, do you want to give your closing remark?
In closing, I would want to say, the simple truth is anything that has ZANU-PF in it, or where ZANU-PF is leading, is corrupted. There is nothing meaningful that will come out of it. This is why Zimbabwe is a failed nation. This is why Zimbabwe is no longer the South Korea that it was projected to be, but actually sitting right next to North Korea. ZANU-PF is toxic. And every one of us knows this. But we are willing to come down to their level and participate in an election process that they give us. It doesn't matter whether it's democratic or not. We will participate because ZANU-PF gives that. That is where we are. So everybody that keeps on saying, it is my right to vote. Of course it is your right. But your actual right is to have a meaningful say in who governs the country and not this puppet show. So if you are going to settle for less, oh well, this is where we are at. Let's then not get up and start blaming ZANU-PF for being the snake that they are, for devouring us. We have not been wise enough to see the very simple thing. And what is so sad is that the so-called intellectuals have been none the wiser as well, or have been actually manipulating the rest of us. ZANU-PF, like you said, has figured out that the opposition, for them to do their bidding, they have to grease their hands. They have to grease their palms. And for sure, we have seen monies exchanging. It's only going to get worse from now on. Now that the opposition members of parliament get to vote on our behalf, to make decisions on who governs the country on our behalf. And I should say that this is a test run of the future. We have seen monies getting given, cars getting given. This is the future of Zimbabwe. This is how Zimbabwe will decide who will be the top dog, who will be number one. Number one will be decided by he who greases the most. He who pays the most will be Zimbabwe's top dog. We put ourselves in this position. We've been warned, but we have refused to listen to reason. Now it's time to pay the price, unfortunately. Thank you.
Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 could have been stopped. And it could have only have been stopped at the very latest by making sure that people do not participate in the 2023 elections. Because we already knew that without reforms, ZANU-PF will rig those elections. And participating will only give ZANU-PF legitimacy. We will never have traveled down this road if the opposition MDC leaders had implemented the democratic reforms when they had the best chance to do so during the 2008 to 2018 GNU. They failed to implement even one token reform. Not one. Nations get the government they deserve. We in Zimbabwe, we cannot deny that we deserve this corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical ZANU-PF dictatorship, complete with its equally corrupt, incompetent MDC-CCC sidekick. That is the truth. Think about it. Have a good day.